All right. So the next thing to pay attention to is this pages class, one of our more important classes, which basically controls all of our pages. So if I do an F12 into here, you guys can see that the pages class is a public static class, meaning you never need to instantiate a new instance of it. And what it has is this very clever method that does a lot of things at once. It's a method called getPage, and it's also private, static, and its return type is T, which means it's any generic return type. And this method getPage is a collection of type T, which is just any generic type. And over here on the right is something a little bit weird where T is equal to new, but what it is called a constraint on a parameter. So when we're using this method, this constraint tells us that T, when returned, must be a parameterless, must have a parameterless constructor that's instantiated. So anytime we use this method, we need to pass in some kind of an object that has a constructor with no parameters. So you can't pass in like an int or like a string or something of that sort. It has to be some kind of an object or a unique thing that has no parameters. And so when we utilize this method, here we create a page using this new T, using this new type of object, and then we use Selenium WebDriver's page factory .init elements to initialize the elements in the page. And that just takes two parameters, which is iSearchContextDriver and a page object. And that page object is this one that we created here, but it's also returned to us when we call this method. So that's what is returned to us, and then we utilize this object right here. So for example, when we do something like a pages dot login, what it does is it calls return get page, and then the type that it's going to return is going to be a login page, and we know that the login page has a parameterless constructor, because if you look at it here, the parameterless constructor is by default set up here. So it returns that login page into this page, and now we use the page factory.init elements to instantiate the driver and the page. And then that page is returned. Returning this page, we can now utilize its methods to work on our driver and our test.